On 5 News tonight, the death toll from Italy's earthquake rises, but there are amazing stories of survival. Also, 5 friends died together on an East Sussex beach, and the hospital that's closed its doors to children. "250 people are now known to have died in yesterday's earthquake, but the race to find those still alive goes on. And sometimes they get lucky, as a 10-year-old girl is found alive after 17 hours buried under rubble. Plus, the 5 friends on a day out from London who died together in the waters off Camber Sands. And a hospital suspends A&E for children, saying its service is not safe. Also, we'll be hearing about a genuine medical first. A year on from the world's first radical face transplant, the man who received it says he feels like a normal guy. And the wonderful moment, Britain's women's hockey team won their first ever goal. I'll speak to the player who scored that winning penalty. Good evening, welcome to 5 News Tonight. I'm Matt Barbett. The number of people killed in yesterday's earthquake that rocked central Italy has reached 250, with at least 365 people injured. And this evening, the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has said a number of Britons have also been affected, and the government's offered any assistance it can to the Italian authorities. From central Italy, Julian Drucker has the latest.
Below is the town of Pescara del Tronto. But after being ravaged by the power of an earthquake, there is very little town left. On top of mountain ridges, there are now new mountains of rubble and wreckage. As rescue teams in the town pick through it, one shouts there's a child underneath and demands silence. They slowly move the debris surrounding the legs of a girl they believe is called Giulia. To keep her calm, they speak to her as they carefully bring her out of the rubble, which has encased her for 15 hours. Eventually, amazingly, this 10-year-old girl is pulled out alive. In a disaster which has seen children killed by the score, thankfully none perished here. At the primary school in the town of Amatrice, the playground resembles a battleground. Class photos here give away how things used to be. "Please close the door," says this stern notice, and the school bell, a sad remnant of what stood just hours before. After Italy's last major earthquake in 2009, the authorities here spent £700,000 to make this school quake-proof. It failed completely. The only saving grace is when the quake struck at 3:30 in the morning during a school holiday. Closely inspecting one of the obliterated buildings, the crucial job where man's best friend is never a more vital companion. Sniffing and scavenging, the search for life here ended without success.
It's very difficult. It's difficult and dangerous because I don't know.
Do you hope there are people still alive in there?
Yes, yesterday there were many people alive. Today, don't know.
It's less possible, it
it's
seems.
Possible, yes, but I don't know.
The search for survivors continues, but in other streets here, the hope has already been extinguished. The job shifting from saving lives to recovering bodies. They tear through metal and concrete to complete the demolition work Mother Nature left half finished. Watching over it all, the church tower, which has stood for hundreds of years, is rapidly crumbling. This structure from the 15th century is now struggling to cope with a quake from the 21st.
And Julian, news emerging this evening of British nationals caught up in the quake.
Yes, Matt, Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, saying in the last few minutes that British nationals have been affected by the quake here. We're lacking clarity on what exactly he means there. Does that mean fatalities involving British nationals, or just that British nationals have had their plans changed as a result
of what's happened here. So the Foreign Office will hopefully confirm that very, very shortly. We're standing at the moment at the side of the school we showed you the front of just a few moments ago. You can see the utter devastation there. The last thing this town needs, though, is more aftershocks. We've had so many in the last 24 hours. The worst one, though, was at lunchtime today. Now, a camera was filming that in the centre of town. You can see the dust go up and people running for shelter as that happened, a 4.3 magnitude. Now, we were in a car just a few streets away. We felt the full intensity of that moment. It is sadly something that the people here are having to battle at the moment. The commander who's leading the rescue effort here, though, says that he doesn't feel that people will be able to survive beyond this evening. He feels that the chances of that, he's very pragmatic, but he feels the chances of any survivors being plucked from the wreckage here are extremely slim. Of course, in the Nepal earthquake last year, someone survived for 5 days, but there it is. He does feel that it is extremely unlikely that there will be any more survivors after the next 2 or 3 hours. And there are fears, of course, that that huge death toll will rise even further in the next few hours.
Julian in Amatrice in Italy for us this evening. Many thanks indeed. Back here in the 5 men who drowned at a popular beach in East Sussex yesterday were a group of friends who'd been on a day trip from London. The emergency services at Camber Sands pulled 3 of them from the sea but couldn't save them. The bodies of the other 2 were later found. As Simon Viger reports now, relatives of some of the men are angry at the lack of lifeguards on the beach.
Another day at the beach, but the reputation Camber Sands has as a safe place to swim has taken a nosedive. Police patrols were very visible today and numbers were down. Regulars know not to get cut off on the sandbanks, but they're surprised at the lack of lifeguards.
Very surprised there aren't any lifeguards, because usually the last year we came it was absolutely packed. So I was expecting something along here, some patrolling, just to see if everything was okay.
Considering that there's so many children around here, I think there should be lifeguards. It would make it a lot more safe, and I would feel more safe to let my children roam free.
Are you surprised that there aren't?
Yeah, I am, actually.
This was the scene last night as the last 2 of 5 bodies were recovered. Sussex police say they were 5 young men on a day trip from London. These are the victims: Nithasan Ravi, Itushan Sri, Kurushanth An, and brothers Ken and Kobe Nathan. Tonight, Mr. Ravi's relatives paid tribute.
He's a very nice person, a very nice son for my mum and dad. A very good brother for myself, for my sister. Fortunately, we lost him today, along with the other 4 people. I'm going to miss him. It's going to be hard, but have to manage. Yeah, really miss him.
There has never been a lifeguard station at this shallow beach. The beach patrol is purely for first aid, lost children and advice. The council says the RNLI advice is Camber Sands does not need lifeguards. But this is what the RNLI's general advice is today.
What we would encourage people to do is make sure they are trying to choose a lifeguarded beach when they head to the coast. There are plenty to choose from, and when you're there, swim between the red and yellow flags. That means you've got a trained professional on hand to respond if there is an emergency.
It was news to the local councillor.
They've deemed it not necessary to have lifeguards on this beach. Listen, I'm councillor for this area. I want the beach to be safe. I want people visiting to be safe. If we need lifeguards on the beach, we need lifeguards on the beach, don't we?
Regulars here are shocked but also bemused by how 5 day trippers can drown on a calm day. But it is another reminder that the sea deserves complete respect. Simon Viger, 5 News, Camber Sands.
We can hear now from Katie Bourne, who is the Sussex Police and Crime Commissioner. She joins us on Skype from Lewis, and in the studio, Vicky Hartley-Kite from the Royal Life-Saving Society. Katie, first, why aren't there lifeguards on Camber Sands Beach?
Good evening. Can I say, first of all, that this has been a tragic day for the families and the friends of those 5 young men who tragically lost their lives, and my thoughts and prayers are with them. There has never traditionally been, to my best of my knowledge, a lifeguard on Camber Sands Beach, But clearly, and I was on the phone this morning to council leaders, we need a meeting urgently to look at this again. And I don't know if lifeguards are the answer, but what we do need is some expert advice to really guide us on this one.
Because it's a beach that had some 25,000 people on it yesterday, 7 miles long, so of course it's difficult to manage. But even so, there were police out there today after the fact.
Yes, I mean, the council work really hard, the police with them. They have Operation Radcot that's been running for several years down there. But mostly it's about educating people on the beach to keep safe and looking after lost children. When people start losing their lives on the beach, that's when leaders need to come together and ask more questions. And we owe it to the families to find answers, and we owe it to the residents of Sussex and people travelling to the beach to know that they are as safe as we can possibly make them. I don't know what the answers are, but we do need to have that conversation.
Because, Katie, there could be the money, couldn't there? There's someone on Camber Sands who's offering advice on lost children. Surely that money would be better spent going towards, well, at least one lifeguard, if not more.
And you make a very fair point, and that's why I and other council leaders will be coming together very shortly to look at this in greater detail, to get some advice around how we can make Camber Sands any safer than it possibly is. But we want people to come and enjoy themselves. It's 7 miles of fantastic sand and coastland, but we want them to be safe as well. OK, Katie Bourne, many thanks indeed. Vicky, what would you expect to see at a very popular beach like Camber Sands on the hottest day of the year to warn people about the dangers?
I think in terms of our advice as a drowning prevention charity, we would always say try and go to a lifeguarded site. However, if there isn't a lifeguard on duty, what I would suggest is look at the signage that's available, tidal times, the times that the tide is coming in and going out, look at any advice and warnings that might be available. Yeah, the RNLI's advice is the same as yours. We heard in Simon's piece there, try and go to a beach that has a lifeguard, but they're the same people who deemed that there didn't need to be a lifeguard on Camber Sands. I can't comment, obviously, on the RNLI and their stance on that, but what I would say is that I agree with them that a lifeguarded beach is the best option if you want to enjoy safe swimming. Look, now, you know, riptides and currents are now, of course, front and centre in the headlines. What should people be looking out for if they are going to swim over this bank holiday weekend, if the weather's good enough, in the sea? So if they are going to swim, they should go to a lifeguarded site and they should look for a yellow and red flag and swim between those flags. If a red flag is flying, it's absolutely don't go into the water. In terms of what they should look for in terms of safety is riptides are difficult to detect. If you do find yourself getting into one, then you shouldn't swim against it. You should try and stay within the riptide. The riptide is a channel of water that takes people out into the middle of the ocean, so you should try and not swim against it. Final word, Vicky, as well. We often hear in these cases, and we're not talking about this specific case, but in these cases, if one person gets into trouble, someone else tries to help them, they get into trouble. What should you do if you see someone who is in trouble in a riptide or a current? Well, obviously, tragically, around 400 people drown in the UK each year, so it is an issue. We think water safety education is really important, so people, when they go into the beach, understand what the potential dangers might be. If they do see someone in a riptide, please don't go in after them, and please dial 999 and call for the Coast Guard to help them prevent there being further tragedies. OK, Vicky, many thanks. A Frenchman has been charged with the murder of British backpacker Mia Eilif Chung in Australia. The 21-year-old was stabbed to death at a hostel in Queensland on Tuesday night. Police have also charged 29-year-old Smail Ayad with 2 counts of attempted murder. And border officials are questioning 6 suspected illegal immigrants who were found in a small boat in the English Channel. Coast Guards intercepted the vessel off the coast of Kent early this morning. Parents have had to be told not to bring children to an A&E unit in Staffordshire because it's been ruled clinically unsafe. Bosses at County Hospital in Stafford say a lack of specialist staff forced them to take the drastic measure. It is the latest hospital to restrict A&E services in recent weeks, as Layla Hayes reports.
Just a year ago, Stafford's County Hospital opened the doors to a new £500,000 children's A&E department. Today, those doors were closed after the Trust said a shortage of staff with the right specialist training meant the department was not clinically safe.
Adult A&E is still open here, but since 10 o'clock this morning, children's A&E has been closed. And that means any family that has a child with a medical emergency won't be coming here.
The department's clinical director told me they simply haven't got enough paediatric resuscitation staff, so A&E had to close to keep children safe.
Can you appreciate that people will be quite concerned by this, though?
Oh, absolutely, and this decision certainly wasn't taken lightly. Our primary concern is always patient safety, and that's why we've made this decision.
And you have no idea when it will reopen?
Not at the moment, no.
The county hospital is, of course, the renamed Stafford Hospital, which was the subject of a public inquiry after hundreds of unexplained deaths led to one of the biggest scandals in the history of the NHS. It's not the only hospital to be hit by A&E shortfalls recently. This month, Grantham and District Hospital announced it was temporarily closing its doors at night because of staff shortages. And in June, North Middlesex Hospital also conceded it was facing a number of issues around staffing the A&E department. In Staffordshire, patients are worried.
Well, it's awful, and for the people that work here, for the whole community. It's, Stafford's a big place.
They're trying to deal with them many things, but they haven't got the staff to do it. They just, that's probably that's the problem.
Oh, that's disgusting, that is. I mean, they keep closing everything, don't they?
Staff here say they won't reopen the A&E department until they're sure children are safe. But there are concerns that this is a short-term fix for what could be a very long-term problem. Layla Hayes, 5 News, Stafford.
Still to come on 5 News tonight. The new life for the man given a new face by surgeons.
No more stares from strangers. I'm pretty much back to being a normal guy doing normal activities.
And it was a golden Olympics, of course, for Team GB's women's hockey team. I'll be talking to Holly Webb, scorer of that vital winning goal. That's coming up after this short break. Welcome back. You're watching 5 News Tonight. Poland has overtaken India as the most common birthplace for immigrants living in the UK. New figures released today also reveal how the government's attempts to tackle overall migration are still making little difference. Dominic Reynolds is with me now. Dom, you've been looking deeply into these statistics. What else did they show?
Well, first of all, every 3 months, the migration numbers are counted up. They're released here. And the figure that everybody wants to keep an eye on is the net migration. So that's the difference between the number of people coming to this country and the number of people leaving this country. And here's the latest one, 372,000. It's not an all-time high, but it's quite close to an all-time high. And as for the government's previous promise that it might get down to tens of thousands, well, it's a very long way from that. The immigration minister said today, though, well, he'd sort of found a silver lining and said that this shows that the economy is creating lots of jobs.
The figures need to be seen in the light of the tremendous success of the British economy, the fact that we've created more jobs in Britain than the rest of the European Union put together in the last 6 years. So it's little wonder that people from the rest of Europe have come here to try and secure employment. And of course, as members of the European Union, there's nothing we can do to control the numbers that come in from the rest of the European Union.
OK, so that's the headline. What else is in these figures? Plenty more, I suspect.
Yeah, there is. There are lots of interesting stories. First of all, you've sort of alluded to this, that for about the last 10 years, India has been the most popular country of birth for people in the UK, if it's not the UK, if you see what I mean. But that's now changed. It's now Poland, because 831,000 people living in the UK were born in Poland. So what sort of change does that make on the population as a whole? Well, quite a big one, it seems. At the moment, 1 in 8 people in the UK was born abroad. If you go back to 2004, it was more like 1 in 11. So quite a big change. And if we look forward, there's another really interesting statistic, and that's 27.5%, more than a quarter of all births that happened in the UK last year were from a mum who originally herself was born abroad. So that's a very big change. One important thing to note, though, these statistics only go as far as March of this year. Okay. That referendum vote, as we remember, was in June. Lots of people talked about immigration around that. So if we want to find out what sort of effect that whole debate had on how many people are choosing to come to the UK, we have to wait for the next one of these, and that's in December.
Could make a difference. We'll find out then. Dom, many thanks indeed. Hundreds of thousands of pupils across England, Wales and Northern Ireland picked up their GCSE results today, and once again the girls outperformed the boys. Overall, though, there was a big drop in those getting grades A star to C, largely because of an increase in pupils resitting exams. In among the stats, though, there are the stories that really matter to people. Minnie Stevenson joined pupils at a school in South London.
It's a moment you never forget. GCSE Results Day. Your hopes and dreams pinned on one piece of paper. And emotions are running high here at Teddington School in South London, where across the board they've got 80% A star to C for the first time ever.
7 A stars? How are you feeling?
I'm like really shocked. Like I didn't think that I was going to get this, so I'm really, really pleased.
It's kind of like nerve-wracking. It's like your feet are shaking. Everything seems a bit blurry, but when you pull out you see that first grade, it kind of relieves you.
I'm really chuffed. Yeah. I think I've done quite well, yeah. I'm really happy, yeah.
What did you get?
I got 3 A stars, 4 A's, a B and 2 distinction stars.
Nationally, however, the number of pupils getting a C or above has fallen to the lowest level for nearly 10 years, a 2.1% drop from last year. But girls outperformed boys once again, with 8% getting an A star compared with 5% of boys. Today, the government admitted grades are down partly because of an increase in the number of people who took resits this year, reducing the percentage getting top marks. But some students here have still got great grades against all the odds. Just a year ago, 16-year-old Nick Laspers very nearly died after having a brain hemorrhage while at school. Despite suffering memory loss, today Nick is celebrating getting 10 A star to C's.
All the stress and pressure just got off my shoulders, and yeah, I can just move on now, focus on A levels.
Next year it's all changed though, when GCSEs will be graded 9 to 1 rather than A star to G. The new system, it's hoped, will help distinguish between middle and top performing pupils. One thing that won't change though is that rush to find out your results. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News.
Now, if you were watching last night, of course you were, you'll have seen our interview with Nicola Adams, who won the second gold for boxing in Rio, her second gold. Well, tonight we're going to speak to another of Team GB's Golden Girls. And when you think about your favourite moment from Rio, you'd be hard-pushed not to include this, the moment that Britain's women's hockey team made history.
Webb.
They did, of course, beat the Netherlands in a penalty shootout in the end after coming from behind twice in their first ever Olympic final. And the player who sealed it there by scoring that winning penalty joins me now. Welcome to 5 News Tonight, Holly Webb. And you're grinning watching that. You must be on cloud nine still, Holly.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually got to watch too much of that since I've been back, but just watching that brings back so many good memories and hasn't really sunk in yet. It's just incredible. I still can't believe what we've done.
What was going through your mind when you took it? Because I was watching it live and I was just chewing my nails.
Actually, I've said this before, in the moment, there was 5 of us that took the shuffles. And as soon as the game finished and it was a draw, the whole team knew, I could feel it, we all knew that we were going to win. And the 5 of us that took the shuffles, it was so positive and you could feel each other's energy that we were going to win the shuffles. So even when we'd had a few of ours saved, I still knew when I was the last one what I needed to do. We'd rehearsed what I needed to do, and I just pretended I was back at Bisham. So we've rehearsed all the processes with various people, coaches, staff, goalkeepers, psychologists. So just pretended I was at Bisham and went with it.
Because you did a great job, of course, putting it away, but hats off to your goalkeeper, Maddie Hinch, because she was just phenomenal on the night.
Yeah, Maddie absolutely loves shuffles. She is...
I didn't know they were called shuffles, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to... Not penalties anymore, shuffles.
Penalty shuffles,
all
it's
right.
fine. She's the world's best goalkeeper, and we're very, very lucky at Bisham Abbey to have 4 of the best goalkeepers in the world, so we get to practice against them all the time.
But let's put it into context, because only 2 years ago, you finished 11th in the World Cup. The Netherlands are the dominant nation. They're like the Brazil of women's hockey. They won the past 2 Olympic finals, and you went 2 goals down in the final. When you were down, you must have thought at some point, this has gotten away from us.
Well, no, not really, because last year we played them... Positive. Last year we played them in the European final, and we were 2 goals down with 10 minutes to go. And we ended up coming back and actually winning that as well. So we always knew with that game that we're always in it right until the last minute. And we have that belief as a squad, which was key.
The whole team are stars, of course, but you taking the winning penalty, Maddie saving so many, and your captain deserves a special mention as well, Kate Richardson-Walsh. She's been at it for a long time. She's now going to retire, and what a high to go on after all those ups and downs of her career.
Yeah, it's an absolute fairy tale ending to Kate's career. She has been my inspiration when I was younger, watching her play, and I know that she's an inspiration for so many other people. She's an absolute legend.
And you did inspire much of the rest of the team as well. Tell us about Andy Murray in particular.
Well, we just got told from physios at the Team GB house that he was in physio watching one of our games and was loving it and just asking what the rules were and wanting to know more about it.
Phenomenal buzz. And, well, I can see you're still buzzing, as are we. Holly, many thanks indeed for coming in and showing us your medal as well.
Thank
there
you
it
very
is.
much.
Right, he is a part of medical history, but the man who had the world's most extensive face transplant has told the world he now feels like a normal guy. Patrick Hardison says he's improving all the time since last year's painstaking procedure, one he needed after suffering horrific injuries. A warning that Ruth Liptrott's report contains images of those injuries.
Patrick Hardison is used to being stared at, but 1 year on from his groundbreaking operation, the 42-year-old is proud to be able to stand in front of a room full of people to tell his story.
I'm here today because I want others to see that there is hope beyond the injury. I am especially proud to share my story with other injured firefighters, first responders, as well as U.S. military. If sharing my story helps just one person explore the possibility of face transplants, then it's been worth it.
This is what the former firefighter's face looked like before he was severely burned when a roof collapsed on him 15 years ago. He couldn't see, hear, eat or breathe properly, but then last year came the operation that would change his life. 100 doctors and medical staff operated on him for 26 hours to give him the face of David Rodebor, who'd been killed in an accident. The operation was an immediate success, but since then the results have just got better and better, and his sight has improved too.
I can now see to drive. It's great to take my kids to school. It's a great thing. I sleep better. It's just great. No more stares from strangers. I'm pretty much back to being a normal guy doing normal activities. My life has changed and it has been renewed.
Some might see him as a medical miracle, but for Patrick, the real gift is getting the chance to be ordinary again. Ruth Liptrott, 5 News.
Just a remarkable recovery, isn't it? That's it from us for now. Sean Welby is here with the weather next, and Danny has updates throughout the evening here on Channel 5. For now, thanks very much indeed for your company. I'll see you again tomorrow at 5. Bye-bye.